Alright guys and gals, this is a long playing review for Golden Axe on the Amstrad CPC, released by Virgin Games in 1990, and I believe just in time for Christmas 1990, but exact release dates I'm not sure of. But we do know that the French CPC magazines were reviewing it in their January 1991 issues, so there you go. And now, obviously, this is a famous arcade from Sega, so before we get to the Amstrad version, we're going to take a quick look at the original coin-op in action, just for comparison purposes. So here we go, we're booting up the arcade game. We're just playing this in MAME quickly, and we're gonna have a look at the full attract sequence and all the way through level 1 with just a few jump cuts just to speed things up. And on the attract sequence we get to see the 3 different characters that you can play as. You've got Axbattler the Barbarian, who apparently his mother was killed by Death Adder, who's the final boss in the game. And he's your standard barbarian. And I think we've got about 4 levels of magic power. Now here we have Tiris Flare, the Amazon Warrior. Or Amazon Warrior Queen, sorry. Apparently she has the most levels of magic power. She can go up to about 6 levels. And her father and mother were killed by Death Adder, the swine. So she has the most magic, but maybe the weakest character to play as. Now here we have the dwarf. I'm not sure that's politically correct anymore. Gilius Thunderhead, what a name! Should be in a heavy metal band. And his brother was killed by Death Adder. Now he has the least amount of magic power, about 3 levels, but maybe the strongest. And there's Death Adder, the final bad guy, the evil Death Adder. And of course, you have the Axbattler, the Barbarian character, who's probably the most rounded character. He has about 4 levels of magic power and probably similar amount of, a decent amount of strength as well. So probably the most balanced, and that's the character that most people go as. Pay attention here to the character select screen and the previous screens we just saw before we come to the Amstrad version. We actually get a little bit of story here with a guy called Alex, which I always found a bit strange in oldie-wildy times, someone called Alex. Alexander would be more appropriate, like Alexander the Great, but I don't think that Alexander was ever shortened to Alex back in those days, who knows. Anyway, so off we go, and as you can see, it's a side-scrolling hack and slash. It's part of the hack and slash genre, which is basically a scrolling beat-em-up brawler, but with swords and axes instead of fists and feet. But it is basically a beat-em-up, and it was quite popular. Apparently there is a different sort of range of moves available for different characters. This guy, if you... Oh, hang on. Oh, yes, you get these little imp-like creatures that will, if you hit them, will drop magic potions to increase your magic power, which you can see at the top of the screen there. So as I was saying, some characters have different special moves, which is normally accomplished by holding down the attack and jump buttons at the same time. This guy, the Barbarian, will do sort of a swirling sword attack, but behind him, so to attack enemies when he's facing the opposite direction. Here he is using his magic attack. And then these bad guys, they just take 1 hit and then they're down. So there you go, and at the end of the level you get a bonus stage where you can increase your powers by knocking these little imps down. You get more of them to knock down on later levels, and then you get this little map interlude screen. And again, pay attention to this before we get to the Amstrad version. We'll see if it's present and complete in that. So this was released in the arcades in May 1989 using the System 16B arcade hardware, and this is from the same guy who did Altered Beast the year before, Makoto Uchida, who was inspired of course by the Conan movies and the Double Dragon games, combining that style together with a sword and sorcery feel, and apparently the combos that featured in the original Street Fighter game. Anyway, but it was a hit, and apparently was the #2 arcade game in Japanese arcades that year. So there we go. Let's move on to the Amstrad version, and here's the box art, which it's actually quite a cool drawing and picture. Actually, I don't know if it actually suits kind of the arcadey, cheesy feel of the actual game. It feels more like it's going to be a role-playing game. It doesn't really convey the feel of the arcade game itself, but it's a damn good drawing. And it is very, very well presented on the box, as you can see. Anyway, let's get the Amstrad version booted up. So let's get this loaded up, and this is a game that I never owned growing up. I've come into this sort of later on, and there's a lot of love for this conversion to the Amstrad. Oh, that's quite a nice loading screen there with the logo. Oh, this music. This music is excellent. And I'm going to let it run in full, so you're going to hear the full tune here. So I'll put a chapter in the video so you can skip forward to the gameplay if you want to. But we're going to let this whole attract sequence play out, and look, it's got the cutscenes just like on the attract sequence in the arcade. There's the Amstraddler screen. It moves to the Tiris Flare one. Now in the arcade it had a little bit in between where it showed off their magic powers in action. Obviously that's probably a bit too much to ask for here. But this is one, I honestly think this is one of the best tunes on the Amstrad. And I've often used this as background music on like other videos and stuff like that. But the music is by Tony Williams, but we'll come on to him later and give him lots of credit and stuff. But he always does really good tunes for the Amstrad, and probably this is his best work. Just to clarify then, you got the 3 characters. You got Amstraddler you can play as. He's your bog standard barbarian, and he's got 4 levels of magic power. You've got Gilius Thunderhead, the dwarf, with 3 levels of magic power. And then you finally got Tiris Flare, as you can see here, the Amazon Warrior Queen with 6 levels of magic power. Now, in this long play, I'm going to be playing as Amstraddler the Barbarian, which is the one that generally most people choose because they believe him to be the most rounded and stuff like that. To be honest, you may be better playing as Tiris Flare the Amazon Warrior Queen, who has the most levels of magic. Now, you're probably going to save your magic for the boss battles to wear them down quicker. But to be honest, playing normally against like the normal enemies you come across in a level, I've tried each of the characters after the long play, like Gilius and Tiris, and they don't seem to make any difference. Now in the arcade you had different special moves they could pull off by pressing the jump and attack key together, but there's only one fire button in the Amstrad version. So there's no. I've not found a special attack that you can pull off in the game, sadly. So that's the damage they do to enemies. Again, it doesn't seem to make any difference unless I've missed something in my tests. As for the range of attack, because both Tiris and Amstraddler have a sword, whereas Gilius, who appears to be the weakest character, the lowest level of magic, has an axe. His range of attack doesn't seem to be any different to the swords of Amstraddler and Tiris, so I can't see any difference between the characters, guys, apart from one. Some of them have more magic than the other. So to be honest, if you're going to try and beat this yourself, you might as well be Tiris Flare, the Amazon Warrior Queen, and have 6 levels of potential magic. But even so, I've not tested fully and worked out how many hits it takes to kill a boss after using magic, the full set of magic for each of the characters, and whether the magic even makes any difference. So I don't know, guys. I mean, this is a long enough long play. It's a long enough game to beat. It's a long enough slog, put it that way as well, that I really can't be bothered going back and going to that level of anal detail. But if anybody wants to, please feel free to and let me know in the comments below. Anyway, let's crack on. That's the end of the music in full, so we'll get to the select screen and move on and actually get into the game now. Nice fade out. And it's nicely got options here for 2 joysticks and redefinable keys. Excellent stuff. And you can select your key for magic, so if you've got a second fire button, this works. So that's fantastic stuff. And then you can select your character. And a very, very nice looking character select screen with the skeleton behind, just like in the arcade version. Very nice. Don't hate me for using WSAD there. But we're not going to use the second player here. But I will show you at the end of the video simultaneous 2-player action. So that's right at the end of the video, and you will see it in action, and it actually works really well, and there's no slowdown. But wait and see, wait and see. But this has been excellently presented so far. Really, really nicely presented. It's brought in lots of stuff that you found in the arcade game. And here we are finally on the last title screen before we can actually start the game. This might be a bit of a nightmare on multi-load for cassette, so be warned. Perhaps best getting this on disc. Anyway, let's get into the game. We'll talk more on that later. And off we go. And the graphics are really nice and colourful. It seems to move at a decent speed. And it looks like a good version of Golden Axe on first impressions. Sadly, no music in game, but there's nice enough sort of slashy sound effects and stuff like that. We saw some quick scrolling there, vertical scrolling. Yeah, okay, so you've got the running shoulder barge move there. You've got your standard sword attack. And that's about it. You can do a jump attack with your sword, but generally it leaves you really vulnerable because you jump really slowly in the air. Nice go symbol there, top right corner, telling you to move on with sound effects. You've got the little imp creature there with his sack of magic, and we're knocking the magic potions out. We collected them there. And we get our first creature appear that you can ride on. Now, these are called the Bizarrians. I believe, or at least in the Amstrad manual they are, and they have a much longer attack with their tail, and but this creature, when you attack, will switch direction every time you attack. But if you keep pushing the direction you want to go in and keep facing, push that direction and the fire button, and it should keep attacking in the same direction and not swap around. That's a top tip there. And off we go. And we're going quite close to the end of the first level. Now, there's I say there's about 5 levels in total in the Amstrad version, which I think is about the same in the arcade. Although it counts like the bonus levels as a stage in the stage counter at the top middle of the screen there. As you can see, there's no score, but I think you get you get shown your points at the end of the game or when it's game over. And you have free credits, so we're using our first credit, and then you got 2 more credits in the bank if you lose all your energy and lives. So yes, you got 3 blocks of energy, which is those blue bars at the bottom left corner of the screen, and you start with 4 lives. And here's the end of level bosses. Let's use our magic. And that's a really nice effect there. Lots of explosions, the screen shakes, and nice crunchy explosion noises there. Now in the arcade, after using it, you just have to knock them down 1 more time and that's it. In the Amstrad version, they take a lot more hits. Now, if you're not on a Bizarrian, I don't know how you pronounce it here, do not try and engage them with a close range attack with your sword. They will nearly always knock you down first. So what I'm doing here is using the dash attack or the shoulder barge we had when we're not on the Bizarrian. And this generally works quite well. And if you can get them on the same horizontal plane as each other, but one's to the far left of the screen, one to the far right, that will work the best if you can time it right. And you can just dash in between them. And that's how you deal with the boss. Although we got knocked over there because they ended up bunched up together. One got knocked, but one managed to get an attack off. If you actually get both exactly on the same horizontal plane and line as each other, and you do the dash attack, it will only knock down one of the bad guys. So if there's more than one, it doesn't count as a hit, which is a bit annoying. But I think that was the same in the arcade version. Anywho, we've done them, and we're on to the first bonus stage. The green guys there will drop health, or pieces of food that will restore your health. And the best way to attack these little imp creatures is to do the dash attack into them, move slightly forward, and then swing with your sword. And we've got all the energy, and all the possible magic potions there. And then we load to the next level. And look, we get the map screen as well. Our sworn enemy Death Adder is in his castle. We will take a shortcut through the turtle village. And you get a little quill, like draw the line on the map there as well, which is really nice. The presentation is absolutely tip top. Really nice. I do like the graphics, but then maybe the sprites are a little bit blocky and ill-defined. I don't know. I waver between liking the graphics and sort of going, it's a bit blocky and squished, and I don't know. But I think I'm glad they added, if you look very closely at the sprites, they all have sort of a black outline of pixels around them to make them stand out. And that works really well. Some graphics artists don't do that, and when you've got all the colours on the screen of the Amstrad's colour palette, and you've got colourful sprites and colourful backgrounds, sometimes it can be really hard to make out sprites and looks like a complete mess. But I think this works really well. You can see the sprites exactly where they are on the screen. There's no clashing with the background and other sprites. So to be honest, that does work really well with the graphics. But yeah, maybe a bit blocky. I don't know. There's only so much you can do with chunky pixels in the mode 0 graphics mode on the Amstrad. But I have seen better examples of it, possibly in where sprites have been larger in size. Maybe like Target Renegade or something like that comes to mind. But we do have a new enemy here, the Lady Warriors in green. And the Bizarrian now breathes fire, which is and that looks really nice actually. But be warned, it's got a longer range, but if they're too close to you, it doesn't cause any damage. It doesn't detect the hit. So if they're right up close to you before where the fire breathes out, they won't get knocked down, but they can knock you off the Bizarrian. So bear that in mind. I suppose that's fair enough. That does kind of make sense from a gameplay point of view. But that caught me off guard a few times on practice runs. One thing you can do, like a lot of scrolling shoot 'em ups or beat 'em ups or hack and slashes, is enemies spawn when you scroll the screen to a certain amount. So you will see me at points after I've cleared a screen of enemies and you've got the go symbol pushing you on, that I will just utch forward little bit by little bit, just to scroll the screen bit by bit, so I have less enemies on screen. That doesn't always work. In that case there, all 3 enemies spawned in at the same time. But you will see later on that normally where there's supposed to be a group of 3 enemies, maybe only 1 will spawn in, you move forward and the second one spawns in, and you can take them out one-on-one rather than in a big group. And that's where the difficulty comes in with this game. It's where enemies group up and they kind of move in an odd pattern around you. And when you've got more than one enemy, it can be quite awkward to sort of position yourself for attack. And they're very, very quick to knock you down. Now, I'm making this look easy. I think I've only taken 1 hit yet so far, and that was at the boss of level 1 by accident. But this game is goddamn tough, and it's actually pretty frustrating. You'll notice that for my attacks, I'm either using a sort of the running shoulder barge attack, or I'm on a bizarre how do you pronounce it? Bizarrian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah, shoulder barge attack again there. Yes, or I'm using the shoulder barge or the flame from the Bazarian. The flame's got much longer range. Now, when you're up close, one-on-one with these bad guys, and it's just you and your sword, using your sword against enemies, it seems to be really hit and miss. And it seems to be random whether you get your hit in first or the enemy does. And it can be really frustrating with combat. So generally, for most of the game, you avoid using your main point of combat, main focus of combat, which is your sword. Because there's too high a risk of your enemy getting an attack in first or doing his shoulder barge against you. So what you end up doing for the vast majority of the game is just running around the screen doing the shoulder barge attacks or running with the Bazarian or attacking from range with one of the Bazarian's attacks. And it kind of ruins the gameplay. In a hack and slash, you want a hack and slash. But we're not in Golden Axe on the Amstrad. We're running and flying and or using one of these creatures, and that kind of spoils the fun. And I think this is the problem with the game for me. The combat lets it down. We'll come on to that more later, and I should point out as well, we talked about the vertical scrolling being quite fast and smooth. The horizontal scrolling is pretty fast and smooth as well. But if I'm honest, the sprites don't really move around at a nice, smooth frame rate. It looks like they're sort of skipping frames around the screen, if you know what I mean, to give the illusion of speed. Well, it does give it speed. There's no illusion. It does move quite fast. But I don't think it's drawing every frame. And in fact, if you slow down like the video footage of the gameplay, you sort of see sprites which are usually split into two parts. And if you slow it right down, I've noticed that you can see like the legs have moved forward before the torso and head has moved forward, if you know what I mean. When it's moving forward, moving the sprite forward. And so it's obviously skipping some frames or lagging behind a little bit, which makes it doesn't make it look sort of smooth movement around the screen. Anyway, also, this is where we have to jump up onto a section. I actually find it quite awkward to find the right place to jump up here, and I struggle every time I get to this bit. Is it there? We need to jump? No. Maybe move forward a bit. No. Move back and up. Maybe up here. And you suddenly move down a bit, and that wasn't me pushing down. But anyway, we made it up there. That was a little bit awkward. That's about the second of two places where you have to jump up on something. So anyway. Right, get our energy restored there. And we're going to try and do this long play without losing a life. Oops. Got him there. And I do wonder sometimes if the collision detection is a little bit off. There was a sword swing there that seemed to like be a swing and a miss and didn't make contact. The village was on the back of a giant turtle. The turtle takes us south across the sea, just like in the arcade. There we go. Now this is probably the easiest level of all if you can get the Bazarian, which has the fireball attack. And there's 3 different Bazarians you can get in the game. And this is the only time you get this Bazarian with the fireball attack. And it makes it the easiest level, which is probably why you don't see this creature again for the rest of the game. And you can just do like a ranged attack there. And you could just make sure you got plenty of distance between you and your enemy, line them up and knock them down with the fireball, and job done. Easiest level in the game. So while we're on this level, I'm going to read out the story of the game if anyone's interested. And this is taken from the manual for the Amstrad version. And it actually gives the full title of The Quest for the Golden Axe. Because a game being called Golden Axe, we don't actually see a Golden Axe at all in it at any point. And I don't think we do at the end of the game. So anyway, let's read out the story. It says here, a terrible scourge has settled on the land of Uria. Not Urea, but Uria. Nothing to do with wee-wee. The evil reptilian creature Death Adder invaded the peaceful villages and byways of this ancient land, putting the population to the sword and worse. His armies of thugs and other murderous creatures now run amok in Uria, terrifying the innocent citizens and exacting crippling taxes from the people. Food is running low, and there is little hope of freedom. The very existence of Uria is now threatened. Death Adder has kidnapped the king and his daughter, the beautiful princess, and he's holding them captive in their own castle. Death Adder has also found the Golden Axe, the magical emblem of the land of Uria, and plans to destroy it and kill the royal family unless all the people of Uria bow to his will, swearing an oath of allegiance to his evil regime, accepting him as ruler. There seems to be little chance of defeating Death Adder and ridding Uria of the evil hordes. The king's armies were crushed long ago in fierce and bloody battles, but an alliance of free warriors from the farthest corners of the land may just manage the impossible. There you go, and that's the story. We actually defeated the bosses here, but we've still got some of the lesser enemies that we're going to spawn in and be a nuisance while we're trying to get rid of the bosses. Still to knock down there. Oh, and this is like the third and final place where we have to do a bloody jump. This time it seems to be a little bit easier to do. Just don't fall off the edge or push too far, because you will fall to your doom there. And again, I've got stuck. Oh, managed to get up there. There we go. Fantastic. And that should be end of the level. There you go. And we get the bonus stage. Oh yeah, there was several sequels to Golden Axe, by the way. So there was Golden Axe 2, which was Sega Mega Drive or Genesis only. And it was kind of a bit of a rehash of the first game, and people liked it, but were disappointed it wasn't much more. We actually had a sequel in the arcades called Golden Axe, The Revenge of Death Adder, and that actually was quite decent. Oh, hang on, story here. We have come in the close vicinity of the castle, but the way is packed by enemy lines. You must dare the fiend's path to reach the castle. There was also Golden Axe 3, which again was Mega Drive and Genesis only, but this time only in Japan. But there was a limited availability in the US via the Sega Channel, which is a download service via modem. So very rare to find that if you had. And lastly, there was sort of a revival attempt at Golden Axe with Golden Axe Beast Rider in 2008 for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. And it was switched to a 3D kind of viewpoint, and it was reviewed very, very poorly. And that was the end of that for basically Golden Axe and future new games, apart from it being rehashed on compilations and mini consoles and stuff like that. Let's talk about the coding here then. So the coding duties for Golden Axe on the Amstrad was handled by Probe for Virgin Games, who subcontracted it out to a company called Paradise Software. Now, the programmer and coder is a gentleman called David Shear. Ooh, he's had a good career as well. And was still working in the games industry up to June of 2020. But he's now based in New Zealand and still coding, but not games currently. On the Amstrad, he's most well known for, of course, the excellent port of Ikari Warriors, which was absolutely top-notch, first-rate. Absolutely love that. And then its sequel, Victory Road, which is basically a bit of a reskin anyway. He also did Hijack for Activision, Super Monaco Grand Prix for US Gold, which is a bit meh, and helped up with the music on David Perry, Nick Bruti classic, Savage. But yeah, he's had a very, very good career, David, and obviously a very talented programmer, because Ikari Warriors in 1986 actually was absolutely bloody brilliant and blew everyone away. Graphics here was done by a guy called Jason Green, who has the alias JB Guzzler. Strangely, okay, fair enough. Oh, we got a new enemy here. and we've got the skeletons as well, inspired by Jason and the Argonauts, the famous movie. I love that movie. Anyway, so the graphics artist Jason Green, an underrated artist on the Amstrad CPC for sure, and he's known for his stunning work also on games like Turrican, Spherical, and Mr. Heli. I loved the graphics on those games. Honestly, I think Turrican, I think the graphics are better on the Amstrad than the Commodore 64 original. Personally, it's all subjective, eye of the beholder and all that. But anyway, so yeah, Jason also worked on Heavy Metal and Dynamic Duo for the Amstrad. And that's about it, though. I wish he'd done more graphics work on the CPC, because he's truly talented and an unsung hero. And to be honest, I think Golden Axe may not be his best work. Maybe one of his weakest, actually. I think Turrican, Spherical, and Mr. Heli all look absolutely fantastic. This is still good, but I don't think it's his best work, but still good. Anyway, lots of skelly bobs on the screen. Nice. Music, and we talked about earlier, the fantastic music we listened to at the start of the game. I just wish it carried on into the game. This was credited to Sound Images, which is that man again, Tiny Tony Williams. And we've talked about him a lot in the past on my channel and various videos, because he's done so much great music on the Amstrad. But check out some of the credits for his tunes on the Amstrad. We have Pang, Rastan, Shinobi, Smash TV, Lemmings, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, The Ninja Warriors, and many, many more. And Golden Axe is probably most definitely his best work on the Amstrad, I think anyway. But what an awesome team, Paradise Software with Sound Images. There you go. So let's talk about the other versions quickly. And there was a lot of them. And it was ported to a huge number of systems. So let's start with the closest one to the Amstrad, the ZX Spectrum. And the Specky version hit number 2 in the sales charts at its peak. And apparently, in your Sinclair magazine, it hit number 60 in the Reader's Top 100 Games of All Time survey. And it has quite good use of colour for the Specky and no colour clash, but with the drawback of having obvious black rectangles around the sprites. And it looks like it shares a lot of code with the Amstrad version, but I think the CPC one still looks better. Oh, and it's also missing the map cutscenes too, but otherwise very similar to the Amstrad one, just missing the map cutscene and perhaps not as good graphics. Commodore 64 version. Well, the C64 has no 2-player option. Only one bad guy fights you at a time. So it's 1v1 pretty much on every screen, it seems. One of the 3 dragon types is missing. Sorry, Bizarrian, however you pronounce it. The last level is also completely missing from the Commodore version, as are also the map cut screens. So only the Amstrad version has it in the home 8-bit micros. But it does have absolutely gorgeous music, though. However, there's always a but, though. Another but. It has absolutely terrible graphics. Despite the sprites actually being well defined and animated, the colour scheme used in the game is just awful. It has to be seen to be believed. Have a look on YouTube and just go, ugh. It does move really smoothly, though, and seems to sort of play okay, but it looks like it probably has the same combat issues as the Amstrad version and the Specky one. Okay, moving on to the 16 bits and the Atari ST. And it looks like an okay version. Graphics and music are alright. Gameplay seems alright. Scrolling, though, is a bit choppy, especially for the 16-bit machine. The Amstrad version seems to scroll better. But there's also seems to be an awful lot of disk loading going on throughout the level. So, like, even when you use your magic attacks, the game pauses and there's a disk load. At least from what I've seen on YouTube. I've not actually played it myself, so if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. But as we move on to the Commodore Amiga version, straight away, it's actually another Atari ST port. But the background graphics are more muted in colour, but more subtle, though. So it depends what you might prefer. You might prefer the Atari ST's brighter colours, it's used from its palette. Whereas the Amiga is a little bit more muted, but a little bit more subtle, perhaps, and easier on the eyes. The Amiga version also has much better music and much better scrolling too. It actually scrolls quite smoothly, as it should do. So not all bad, given its support of the ST version. It actually doesn't suffer some of the same issues as the ST, especially the scrolling, which is right, really, given the Amiga. But yeah, okay versions of the arcade coin op. I think it could have been a little bit more accurate, but there you go. This also appeared on PC DOS, and this looks like it's going to be a really fantastic port, and up there with the Mega Drive version, which we'll come on to in a minute. Just from looking at the graphics and sounds and stuff like that, a lot of PC ports of the era were pretty terrible. But unfortunately, the sprite movement isn't entirely smooth. It sort of feels a bit like the Amstrad version, actually. But it's actually very decent for a PC port at the time it came out, though. So we move on to the consoles. Let's start with the Sega Genesis Mega Drive version, which is the most famous port and very accurate to the arcade. But it also adds in some additional content and modes and stuff. So it's probably the best overall conversion to go for if you want to play Golden Axe at home and not via MAME emulation or something like that. So yeah, there you go. Mega Drive version, probably the best one. Also came out for the Sega Master System, and it's fairly decent. Although the sprites moving around the screen is a little choppy, a bit like the Amstrad version again. We've also got a TurboGrafx CD version, and it has the best music so far. Of course, it's CD quality music, and really, really good. It plays really smoothly and well. Just some dull and muted colours due to the graphics lets it down slightly for me, which is a bit strange for the TurboGrafx. We go to a very rare system here called WonderSwan Colour. And actually, it's a very decent version for this late 1990s handheld. And it looks like a complete blast to play. If simplified with the graphics, it's more cartoony style graphics. And then we've got the Game Boy Advanced version, which is released the same year as the WonderSwan one, and this looks more like the arcade version graphics wise, and it's going to be the best handheld version of Golden Axe to play, and it's quite awesome. So that's another really great conversion. I'll have to make mention of the remaster or remake on the PlayStation 2 from the Sega 80s compilation in 2003. We now have studio quality sound and music, but with 3D sprites, but on a, the same horizontally scrolling perspective, if you know what I mean. And it seems to play okay. Might be an interesting one to check out. Oh yes, I should say this is the last, I think it's the last level on the Amstrad version here. It might take a little bit of time to complete. We're going to look at magazine reviews now. So we always look for the Amstrad Action review of the game. And this was reviewed in the March 1991 issue 66 of Amstrad Action magazine. And note that French Mags reviewed it in January. Again, no idea why AA was so late with reviewing this and other games. Anyway, they highly praised the presentation, graphics and sounds, like I do, but marked it down for being a bit too samey, which is a criticism that you can level at the arcade original too, to be fair. It's the second opinion in a box out from another review that sort of chimes with me, that says, the gameplay is a bit too slow and jerky to retain the excitement of the arcade original. Even hacking and slashing gets boring after a while. Well, I don't know what he means by slow, because you can pelt it around the screen like lightning if you want to. It's a really fast game. Maybe he means the progress in the game is, moving through the level is slow going, with enemies needing multiple hits and you needing to constantly reposition for the optimum attack range, otherwise you risk getting knocked over, or you just rely on your dash attacks. He also says jerky. Again, maybe the wrong word to use there. I'd say clunky combat may be better. Anyway, I'll come on to my thoughts in a minute. Anyway, they rated the graphics at 83%, the sonics at 78%, a little bit harsh, Grab factor 75% and stain power 72%, with an overall AA rating of 75%. As for my review, well, I've got to be honest, I'm slightly disappointed by this. With all that wonderful presentation, it can't disguise that the main feature of the game, the hack and slash combat, is poor. You know, forget about attacking enemies one-on-one with your trusty axe or sword. You may as well roll a dice to see who gets the attack and hit in first and gets knocked down. Instead, just rely solely on your running shoulder barge attack, or Bozarians. Oh, I still can't pronounce that. If you're lucky enough to be still mounted on one. Because enemies move around in an odd way, you can often find yourself moving in on them in front of you, ready to attack, to instead suddenly they're behind you with your back to them. And you're vulnerable, and within seconds you're lying in a heap on the floor. To be frank, this gets dull and boring, I'm sorry to say. And I do like my mindless beat-em-ups and hack and slash games, but this just isn't it, sadly. I mean, if you're a big fan of the arcade, then you'll be quite pleased with this on the Amstrad, but only as a kind of a souvenir of the arcade version. You know what I mean? It's like a postcard or photo of a nice holiday you went on. You know, you're not actually on the holiday, but you're reliving it in your head a bit. But maybe I can do a better analogy. So maybe it's more like it's the equivalent of making your own Big Mac at home using Asda value burgers and cheese slices and slightly off lettuce, compared to being inside an actual McDonald's having the real thing. You could perhaps make that burger look more appetising, adding fancy stuff to it. Indeed, Golden Axe CPC has absolutely fantastic presentation all round, but at the end of the day, that burger is still an Asda value one. And well, I'm not a particularly big fan of McDonald's, by the way, but hopefully that works as a metaphor for my review. I mean, I love all the cutscenes, the intro screens, the music, graphics generally, and we even get the ending sequence. So there is an ending sequence, guys, so bear with me. That's all top stuff. I just wish the combat and movement worked better. I know there are big fans of this conversion out there, so I don't want to upset anyone. But, you know, we have to be honest. It's not that great fun to play. So with all that being said, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Yeah, 7 out of 10. I can't really think of any other hack and slash games on the CPC to recommend above this one, to be fair. But given how close it is to a scrolling beat-em-up brawler in style, I'd say stick with Target Renegade or something like that. But there you go. 7 out of 10, maybe 7.5 and wavering. I don't know. I tell you what, 7.5 out of 10 for the disc version, 7 out of 10 for the tape version, because that multi-load would be a nightmare. So there you go. Let me know what your review scores are in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know your thoughts on this game and the review. As we're getting close to the final boss here, and I'm just, like I said earlier, I'm just moving forward slightly bit by bit, trying spawning maybe just one or 3 enemies rather than all of them at the same time. Oh, here actually, what you're better off doing is keep these on screen scrolling with you, because you might be able to use your magic and then pick up the magic potions they drop for another blast of magic as we come up against Death Adder finally, with a few skelly bobs going around. So there you go, I've got to use 2 magic attacks in a row there, so there's a top game playing tip for you. Eventually the skeletons will stop spawning. I think you either get 4 or 6 of them, and you can use your rush attack, and if you've got enough range, you might be able to use your flame attack from the Bazarian. And if you get them on the same horizontal plane as you, you can move sort of left and right between them. But I noticed that other skeleton was getting dangerously close to me, so I sort of backed out there. And yeah, we're nearly done. So where are we? About, if I take off like 5 minutes of my intro and talking about the arcade version, we're nearly sort of 40 minutes into the game. So it's I suppose you get a fair amount of bang for your buck, but it has been a bit of a slog by this point, and when I was recording this, at this point, I was like, can we just be over with this now? If I'm honest. This might be quite good in 2 players. So, yeah, I think with the simultaneous 2-player action, which seems to work really nicely with anti-slowdown, definitely a 7.5 game then. Yeah. That might add a bit of play value to it. There's not many simultaneous 2-player games on the Amstrad that work well, actually. I suspect Golden Axe will be quite good fun with 2 players. But we will show some footage at the end of the long play. And now we're in a good position here. We've got no more skeletons, and we could just focus on knocking this guy down as soon as he gets up. Count to about 3. So 1, 2, 3, attack. 1, 2, 3, attack. There you go. So just get the timing right there before he can do any attack on you, and he's easily dispatched. But my God, does he take a lot of hits? There you go. Finally, Death Adder is defeated. And let's see what we get for the ending. We get quite a long ending sequence, guys. So buckle up, prepare yourself. Bit of a wait here. There we go. Congratulations. First of all, we get the map now finally fully drawn. There's the turtle, the eagle we were on the back of. We didn't get the eagle feathers flying at you across the screen like we do in the arcade. But anyway, on that level. But there you go. It's written Fin for end. And don't worry, more ending sequence to come. Quite an ending sequence coming up. But we just have to wait a little bit. Oh, yeah, there you go. It has actually been tallying a score up. We get 42,800 points there. But we don't actually ever get to see the score before this point. So unless you complete the game or it's complete game over, no more credits left, no more lives, then this is the only time you get to see the score. And we did it without losing a life. Oh! Kids playing the arcade machine that explode, and out of the arcade machine comes all the characters in a very fourth wall breaking meta kind of ending. They're escaping the arcade. This is the ending in the coin-op version as well, so this is not some bizarre thing they've dreamed up for the home computer versions. This is the ending from the arcade, and here it is in the Amstrad version. It's quite funny seeing all the different sprites running out there. Actually, really nice background graphics there as well. There you go. Presented for you by Sega Enterprises Limited, Virgin Games Limited, Probe Software Limited. See you on the next game. And there's more to come. Only one more screen. But you can see they've spent a lot of effort on the game. A lot of effort on the presentation and getting as many of the screens and endings from the arcade version. And you've got to give them credit for that. I just wish they spent more time fine-tuning that combat, which is the key bit of the game and what lets it down. There you go. But there you go, Paradise Software. Some thanks and credits there. You can see they're coding by David Shear, graphics by Jason Green, and music, sound, images, etc. The Probe, Virgin, Sega logos. Right, coming up in just a tick, we're going to show some cooperative 2-player action. But yeah, guys, that's my review then. I'll stick with a 7.5 out of 10. Because the gameplay is most important above graphics and presentation and stuff. But simultaneous 2-player does notch it up maybe a bit. Anyway, quick jump cut here. We'll leave the music playing. And here you go. And you get to see the other characters in action here as well. So So we've got Gilius Thunderhead the Dwarf, and we've got Tiris Flame the Amazon Warrior Queen. And as you can see, I'm trying to do it using both hands on the keyboard here to move them about, but there's no slowdown and it works really well. So that's actually really excellent. It's not often you get to see really good simultaneous two-player action. We'll use the magic there from Gilius. He has those little lightning bolt attacks. And if you look closely at the top of the screen there, you can see the magic levels of the two characters. So the lady there, she has 6 levels of magic, and poor Gilius only has 3 levels of magic, even 4 potions. So Tiris is going to need a lot more magic potions, but she may well be the best character to play because she has the highest level of magic, and there doesn't seem to be any difference in the range of attacks or damage you inflict on enemies. So I don't know what the point was of the different characters. Might as well just stick with the Amazon Warrior Queen, Tiris. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and let me know what you think in the comments. Alright, goodbye.
So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please click a like below, leave a comment, and also subscribe if you haven't already. And over that way, there's another video for you to check out. Xyphoe, out.